Hey, okay. This is the content strategy breakdown live stream. Abdul, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, this is Abdul Smile. I'm the host on the Content Strategy Breakdown, and we got Saj over here.
Who's also a
And
host of the content strategy breakdown as well. and
exactly,
and we're just having a good conversation today on a number of things that we've kind of noticed over the past 12 months and what we're looking forward to in 2026 with regards to content strategy. Um, Abdul, do you want to tell them a little bit about what we're going to be talking about?
yes. What we're gonna do is we're gonna first analyze the trends of content marketing in 2025. We're gonna go through the trends of 2025, analyze the trends of 2025, and what we're gonna do is give you guys some takeaways to go forward in 2026. And we're going to showcase how the three episodes that we have designed are going to be interconnected in some way. And that's the exciting part is begin the first of the content marketing trends in 2025. So first, we had to give a damn about damn.
That's
It's
right.
all
And what does that mean for those who are
this
not familiar?
asset management.
Love it. Love
And
it.
so for the audience who are not as sure about digital asset management, that means we're able to put a tag or a label on an image or a video and categorize it for AI utility. It sounds simple, but that's how we're going to begin. Besides, break it down about personalization, where we really need to get in deep and showcase how, with the cookie era is fading, the cookie era is fading, and segment based email campaigns are no longer going to be viable with your strategies. So, personalization, let's get into it.
Yeah, definitely. And to that point, that cookieless future, right? I mean, that's been in the works for a while, hasn't it, Abdul? So we've seen that with the way that advertisers and marketers have been planning their campaigns with looking at some of the kind of like intent signals around buying, around consuming content. So whereas in the past, placing a pixel on the screen was really important for tracking and attribution. Now it's more of a case of what you already have in your content offering that's useful and valuable, that can draw folks in, and is it easily accessible, right?
Yes.
Yes, right. You say, I think we agree on that generally, right? So,
Right.
but when we're talking about like how we use personalization in 2025, it's so much more use of it now than there ever was. And I think we used to be that personalization was put somebody's name on top of an email, so you'd have like kind of like hi Fred blogs. We really kind of care about you kind of email, buy our stuff. Whereas now we can get all those different intent signals, where they're at on the internet, whether what social platforms are they active on, what are their interests, all that kind of attribution data, and we can create like a pretty like detailed profile, right, of what somebody is likely to respond to in terms of like content. And if we're thinking about the content mode that we have, right, are we really creating content that serves the user and the ICP at the same time? For I would argue for like a long time we were doing like one or the other. There was a focus on it must be user friendly at all costs,
Yes.
versus like the traditional like marketing where like we just need more leads, right? So
Yes.
how do you kind of marry those two together, right? And I think with the advent of personalization and how it's starting to scale up with how people search for things right now, without necessarily being tracked in a cookie like way, right? It's more of a kind of like uh, this is what I find valuable kind of way. I think those kind of systems will need to be kind of really overhauled and repurposed, and there's a real need for work to be
Yes.
done on that. Love you to kind of speak a little bit more about some of the work that you may have been doing as well around this.
Yeah, I think the era of personalization is about taking control of your assets because we have so much behavior in data that is spread all around the channels and beyond even the channels. It's also the messaging is fractured. And without incohesive elements, you don't get a streamlined messaging that pages are not receiving at the right time. And that's why I think personalization is about organizing your assets through the digital asset management that we've been discussing over this year. Is if we recognize our assets by scaling, we're going to bring a lot of benefits where it's usually seen as kind of overhead, where people don't like the terms of metadata personalization, where it's like there's an opportunity to really personalize the content that's been displayed around several of the channels with lacking any architecture. So now it's about getting the architecture structured and then able to showcase the benefits that come forward and authenticity.
That's excellent. And like thinking about like a vertical use case for that, let's go for example, talk about like the healthcare pharma industry, right?
Yes.
Where there's like huge compliance and like regulatory needs around stuff that is like distributed and shared. For example, like mobile app platforms for prescription management, for example, right?
Yes.
And we could talk about a couple of folks that are doing work in that area. For example, I know that CVS have recently updated their electronic services system so that you no longer have to go to it, go to a cashier and say, "My name is this, my date of birth is this." You can type that into a screen, and your record and any prescriptions that you have will automatically come up on that screen. You know, and that kind of speaks to like the way that they're like organizing how folks are getting their scripts, but also the types of scripts, the contingency and compliance requirements around that. You don't necessarily have to communicate that out loud anymore,
Right.
as well. So it kind of solves that pain point as well. And then if you're picking up for somebody else as well, it allows that as well. It allows you to authorize and authenticate through that as well. So I think there's going to be more of that kind of stuff, more of that kind of like uh, app app technology, which is compliance related,
Yes.
right? That is also customer friendly. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I'd love to know what you've kind of seen just generally in any industry around where you've been working.
Yeah. I think I'm also seeing in the healthcare industry is maintaining the theme of authenticity is that like I think the experts have you mentioned I think with the data implementation even carrying on with the testimonials of their diseases their customer journey into intake of prescriptions using a month-long practice is now we're getting the storytelling element that stays within the compliance guardrails where it was coming from the doctors, the patients, and the nurses, and they tell the stories about their experience in taking this product or their difficulty in receiving access to this service and this product that is available at CVS where the data has not been collected and it's hard to really provide the service. And so again, this authenticity is what's really a critical component that we're seeing in the healthcare industry that I think is gonna be a core messaging that is streamlined for very well made content organization that authenticity is really taken over in television and print across digital and physical experiences that it's all been unified into structured organization.
Definitely. And that kind of like brings us on to just like a little discussion around, how AI and digital asset management can kind of work hand in hand.
Yes.
So, obviously people are doing this in different ways, right? Depending on the vertical. So, for example, in finance, using finance apps um, for example, like stocks. I've heard of people like feeding aggregated data of stocks onto a unified like kind of app, for
Mm.
example, making it make sense so that you can like confidently work with selecting the best stocks that you need. And
Oh,
so if you're an investor, that's like a huge kind of work case, right? That's quite significant. So so that's one use case that I've heard of. And then other use cases around, let's say, for example, you're in the kind of like the HR sphere as well, right? And you're looking to kind of automate or make more efficient certain tasks, like for example, payroll, staffing, resourcing, that kind of thing. You know, there's so many different like platforms out there that cater to different needs, and I think one of the ways that folks are gonna be competitive in these kind of compliant, more kind of regulated industries is really understanding who's using their software, who's accessing the content within the software, and
yes.
how you can easily create hierarchy, and an architecture like you mentioned before, Abdul, that kind of supports that that customer experience as well.
Right. Because the good thing about forming the architecture that we've discussed 11 minutes in, and the audience, how you doing? How you doing? Are we
Yeah,
good?
how you doing, guys? Look, listen, we don't just want to talk at you, right? So anybody who's online right now, just comment, like, share. We love
Yes.
interaction here as well. So and also if you want to connect with us on LinkedIn as well, we're searchable on LinkedIn as well. Saj Hussain and Abdul Fattah Ismail. We are on LinkedIn, so feel free to do that as well. But yeah, talking and looking back at like AI, looking at like how agentic AI in particular is gonna, is already changing the game, right? Around how folks do things in a way that's more of a kind of automated and operationalized that way. If you think about some of the typical tasks that um, a dam is used for, where do you see like kind of an area of opportunity that folks can capitalize on?
I think the opportunity we see in advertising is just you're looking in now with a moat being created through designing first data party strategies. It's like we have all this content and we haven't organized it. And now if we're able to tag it and keep it on a very structured format to receive the best output. And that's the beauty of the AI services. And also, I think the tools that we're going to be implemented is to really predict the user behavior when it is organized at consistent level, where you start very small with it to scale the human design. Is what we're going to do. I think an example is like, I think in the automated sector too, where I think the audience is definitely looking for how they're able to utilize their electric, basically the electricity in their vehicles. Is like where are they able to find the station to load the electricity in their vehicle, and
Yeah,
also they automate their pacing going on the roads and
that,
distance.
that that's a great point. I mean, one of the pain points that folks have with EVs is like how long is it going to last, like a charge, right? You
Right.
know, and obviously times are getting longer and longer, but like being able to have those responsive systems that rely on like data, historical data, for EV consumption usage, right? Be able to make the best guess around. Let's say, for example, somebody wants to go from um, Washington, Maryland, where you're from right now, to let's say to North Carolina, right? Using their EV, right? They might have a rough idea of like how many charges it might take, but if you have a system that you know uses helpful hierarchical information, historical data, and current world conditions to estimate, hey, listen, this is going to take you, another 5.5 hours, right?
Yes.
And you're going to use a charge and a half. So really halfway in between, you're going to have to find yourself a charging station. Otherwise, you're going to be in trouble. That kind of stuff folks really find useful, right?
Yes.
And I think one of the practical applications of how you can engineer a digital asset management system and use AI like thoughtfully to kind of help somebody make decisions around that and make intelligent decisions around that as well. That really kind of affect real lives, as opposed to like, I mean, there's a lot of theory about AI. I know the hype cycle's huge, right? But this is a practical application that can really, I think, justify creating a system with AI in mind.
Indeed, indeed. Because I think rather than viewed as say like just a gloomy IT overhead task, where clearly what it does is there's so much velocity upstream when we have the user assets tagged and architected properly from all experiences, then we're able to really analyze the performances of what the audience is going to be taken across all the experience, and then we're able to kind of remix the messaging. And that's the part is there's a lot of velocity in terms of tagging these assets,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a short term build for a long term velocity gain that becomes evergreen.
Break that down further for us, like, so let's explain it like a fifth grader would understand that. What do you mean by like velocity?
What I mean by velocity is the potential for growth based on the user data that we've been able to organize and structure. We're able to predict and adapt. For example, like say if a fifth grader wanted to buy like a box of juice at the bodega, they
Mm-hmm.
buy like 2 boxes of juice at the bodega only on Tuesdays. And they've been buying 2 boxes of juice at the bodega on Tuesdays for 3 weeks. So then I think the bodega owner
That's
is
a
then
third grade, right?
offer a free incentive for buying 2 boxes at the bodega on
A lot of
Tuesday.
juice. There's a lot of juice. I'm parched already thinking about it.
Right. So I think to categorize how to scale the asset in order to define the architecture to pass the human behavior at the right moment, and the output will be more authenticated, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense, man. And yeah, just thinking about like those practical applications. Just say like right now, like with the, and not to get like all political on it, but like with the government shutdown, and folks finding it really hard to kind of like make do with like limited food options, right?
Yeah.
These are solvable problems, potentially with content, right? Or potentially with the way that certain asset management systems can be set up. So, like, let's say, for example, we know that there's going to be a planned lull, for example. There's going to be likely a shutdown of some point, and that most likely that's going to happen more often, right? So
Indeed,
just
indeed.
so we can plan for that, right? Try and get the resources that folks need without having to be reactive. Um, but yeah, I mean, just there's so many different possibilities. Like, and it's funny because like when I've spoken to folks about like hierarchy and architecture and ontology and taxonomy, their eyes
Yes,
tend to kind of glaze over, right?
yeah,
But it really does have a lot of practical applications to life, right? So,
yes,
particularly around these use cases that you have for people who need to do stuff, right, in ways, and then they need information around that. For example, the DMV, right? We all of us suffer with the DMV, right? you know, just think of how overhauling that with more of a scalable system of content retrieval would help, right?
yeah,
Not necessarily having to like have an in-person queue. Maybe you'd have a virtual queue, which is like much faster to deal with certain types of paperwork and things like that. We can hope, we can dream, but
yes.
until then, we just take a ticket and we pray that we get seen quickly. So
Indeed.
right. So there's that. But yeah, so many different uses, and what I think I've seen personally over the year is just like a real commitment to those kinds of use cases, to try and help make stuff easier for folks. So whether it's like on the EV side, automating fuel efficiency and like fuel refuel, whether it's in healthcare, making you get your scripts more easily, maybe whether it's in retail, for example, being able to kind of buy stuff in a way that makes sense to you, and being able to view the repository of stuff and like really make that shopping experience a little more intuitive and user friendly.
Yes.
There's so many different things that have been happening over the last year, and I think going forward in 2026, companies are only just going to keep indexing on that, right? you
Right.
know um and that kind of like leads us to kind of like how folks are really kind of growing their content engine,
Right.
with and just in relation, like kind of the next logical step beyond DAM is like, obviously, yes, you have the content that's surfaced, available in a repository, right? But you also have, how does that interact with campaigns and with content marketer needs, for example,
Yes.
like and just like taking a minute to kind of talk around that. It's like a lot of the time there is like a mandate for content marketers to produce more and more and more and more and throw more and more and more at the wall, right?
Yep.
See what sticks. But I think we historically, that's because we've had lots of like market pressures, whether it's vertically downwards from the C-suite, or whether it's like horizontally from industry from industry, or even if it's from like LinkedIn gurus, right?
Right.
I'm going to tread carefully here, but just like there's a lot of competing kind of like noise and voices in this space,
Indeed.
and I think something that content marketers haven't really capitalized on is uh, how UX content, how you know um, the craft of taxonomy, and how that intersects with AI and with creating a content engine, right?
Yes.
To create like a more full connected picture, right? So let's give an example, right? Let's say you have you have a clothing supplier, right?
Yes.
And they deliver globally to the Middle East, EMEA, and Asia Pacific, APAC regions,
Yes.
right? Those different regions have different needs,
Right.
um, and therefore they will respond to different kinds of messaging around those needs, but also different resourcing. So if you have the resources and the assets that you already can take advantage of, rather than reinventing the wheel, you can repurpose that information to
Indeed.
make sure that it's targeted towards your ideal, regional needs, whether that's going to be in Singapore, or whether that's going to be in Dubai, whether
Right.
that's going to be in Lisbon, Portugal. You'll be able to target that around. You target your content strategy, for marketing around that, and your content, effectively growing your content engine that way. At least that's my perspective on that. If anybody does have any kind of thoughts on it, remember, you can comment, like, and share. Okay, that's what the banner says, right? So feel free to kind of take part, and also you feel free to take part even after this has ended. This will be recorded, so you can comment afterwards, and we can get like a sneak comment afterwards. I'll be like, oh, that's interesting. So
Indeed.
so yeah. But those are some of the aspects that we have, and then really around that kind of persona development. A lot of enterprise organizations have so much historical context on their customers, right?
Yes.
And oftentimes it's organized in a way that has just kind of organically become like a mess, right? So
Right.
they know a lot about a lot, but they don't know what they need to know, and if you know, and sometimes
Right.
they don't. So,
Indeed.
um, so that's why where content strategy from the back end, like the kind that you offer, comes in, and then the connection through to like how do we translate this into collateral that really resonates across our audience, right? Our
Right.
customer, right? And one of those goals, how do we improve the customer experience? How do we position ourselves as like brand authority leaders? in the space? How do we make ourselves different from all the 100, 200, 300, 400 companies that are doing similar things, right? How do we, everybody's looking for that kind of unique competitive advantage, right? And I think, those who are smart with the way that they use their content modes around digital asset management and how they translate that into content strategies that are front facing for
Yes.
marketing purposes are going to be the ones that win out at the end of the day, right? Because they're working in much more of a kind of responsive, proactive way, as opposed to like just like kind of almost like the old playbook, right? Where it's like, here's my playbook. We need to target, top, middle, bottom funnel.
Yes.
We need to create 100 blogs on CRMs, and we'll think about doing social after. you know,
Indeed.
that,
Indeed.
that
Yeah.
thing. So and it's I don't know about you, but I think it's also going to be more easily measurable, right? Because like
Yes.
you can drive those back to like analytics and attribution systems that actually really reflect what we're trying to achieve, as opposed to like, oh well, so such content got 100 clicks. What does that mean? What does that mean in reality, right? Whereas you could like train a system, say, hey, by the way, this person got halfway down the content before they kind of like bounced, and we do that already with heat maps, but we could do that in a lot more of a nuanced way.
Yes.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I don't know if you let me know if you tell me this, but like, what's an example of like good marketing that you've seen recently that kind of stick out?
Good marketing of seeing
Yeah,
is, I
like
think,
an ad or campaign, anything.
yeah, ad or campaign. I really like the ad with Arby's.
Hobbies, okay, go on.
Yeah, because I think their messaging is very well personalized. Like, you will see ads across their social channels where they know the Gen Z demographic is on X and Snapchat. So,
Ah,
and I think is where in the past where I think that one video would be across like 10 different social channels, and I think those days are gone. It's like, but I think seeing the Arby's ads because it is lunchtime at 1 o'clock, and it's the same messaging across specific channels within the artist is going to be either at the restaurant or going to be driving towards the restaurant. And I think that level of personalization is, how we're able to just keep it streamlined, keep
yeah,
it,
it's fun, right?
yes,
Yeah, and Arby's, by the way, if you do want to sponsor us, we also like the meats as well. So
especially because it's like when you organize by the channel and the audience, the format, it's just like that, and it's the same messaging, but it's just across specific channels. Where before, like you see the same ad everywhere else, whether it's either on the bus stop or on the train, on the bus, or right above a tab. So I think display advertising, the same message across the mentions, it won't be nearly as effective as it
no,
was in the past.
it's called like ad blindness, right? You know,
Yes,
uh, and people want more useful things. So not just like let's say, for example, not just a electronic billboard, but like let's say what the next call to action is, rather than like filling in your details. Maybe you're doing something fun like a game, or using a calculator of some sort, or like do some sort of interactive exercise that gets you fully kind of immersed into the kind of like advert, and then at that point you can like qualify and really qualify a customer, right? Because they've really engaged with your concepting, your creative direction around the campaign, that kind of thing. But that all requires like good back end content strategy, as well as front end content marketing strategy. I think the one hand can't really like work well without the other. I think that's really where I believe that we're missing a trick as UX professionals and as marketers.
right.
You know, Um, but yeah, so I'm gonna go check the chat, see if anybody's in there. If they're not, that's fine. But let's have a look.
Right. The bottom line though is now I'm also thinking too is I think this can be on YouTube going forward. So it will be available for those to watch.
Absolutely, we're gonna have a pre-recorded version that's just downloadable. Take it at your leisure. I think we were originally planning to do this for an hour, but I think I feel like we've kind of spoken this stuff out, right? Um,
Yes.
so what I'd love to say, if you found this useful, valuable with us, connect with us on LinkedIn. We always love to have conversations and nerd out about content. You know, um, you know, um, share it, comment, like, and share it with folks, as well. And yeah, just until next time, if we do another live, it's gonna be bye from me, Saj Hoffman Hussein, and
Yeah. So
bye from bye from Abdul as well, right? So
yeah. So I think just we've really collected in organizing metadata is how we're able to build personalized solutions across unique channels at unique times. And so I think my advice for those who are in the chat or in the audience is just run a health check with all the photos you have in your desktop, your tablet, your mobile. See what's not missing, what is missing, and who owns it. And it's really just about owning the digital assets going forward. And then once you're able to own it and handle the simple task observations, find a team who can structure and organize it. And then once you do have the health check, you can place it, store it, and distribute wherever you want with the right channels at the right place at the right time. And then it'll be automated too going forward because with the architecture already built, then it'll be easy to share the story and give some more human
absolutely,
dimension.
absolutely. So if you ever need content strategy around that, Abdul is your guy for that. He runs Makani Ben Consulting, and I also run Simple Content Strategy Consulting, where I offer tailored content solutions as well. So this has been the content strategy breakdown with me and Abdul, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Let us know what you think in the comments, and yeah, have a great afternoon. Bye for now.
Yes, wow. Thank you.